My mother tongue is Cantonese.
My mother tongue is Urdu.
My mother tongue is Korean.
My mother tongue is Mandarin, so 我会讲中文。
My mother tongue is Cantonese.
I would say I am a foundational basic level in Korean. Need to improve that.
I would say I am a 9 out of 10 fluency. Yeah.
I think that I'm fluent enough. I can engage in conversations and I can understand people, but I wouldn't be able to give a speech or anything like that. It just wouldn't work. I would just sit there like, I don't know what I'm saying, but I guess it's fine. I'm fluent enough.
I am a native speaker in my mother tongue, and I speak Mandarin since I was very, very young.
So I can speak and understand Cantonese. I can't read or write it.
I think growing up in a household where one parent speaks English and one parent speaks Urdu has definitely influenced my upbringing.
I had a lot of struggles, a lot of conflicts, because my first language was actually Cantonese.
It definitely was a big factor in the relationship between myself and my parents. And I definitely felt that there was a big barrier in not knowing how to speak the language.
My mother tongue influenced my upbringing a lot because I'm able to learn a different kind of culture, and of course when I came to a brand new country from a third world country, I'm able to speak Mandarin with the people I know, and I'm able to learn and bring a different culture to my lifestyle in a different country.
I struggled to communicate with kids and teachers at school. Therefore, that led towards a physical and verbal bullying, and also a lot of miscommunication, because we just couldn't interact with each other. We didn't understand each other.
Therefore, I feel like my understanding and my listening capabilities of the Korean language was like pretty good. Like it was pretty like 90% good, but my listening, my reading, speaking and writing skills weren't used as much, therefore it wasn't developed as much, and therefore I lack in that sense.
Yeah, in terms of fluency, the more fluent you are in your mother tongue, then the easier it is for you to communicate with your parents, with your family, elder members of the family, mostly because of how comfortable they are when communicating with that language. Because that is their first language, so that is what they know and understand the best. How did it influence my upbringing? It's
allowed me to be more in touch with my culture, even though I'm not one of the most visibly Pakistani people you'll meet.
My upbringing with Cantonese meant I was looking up at idols that were like Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, Jet Li. Those were the people that was on English television that had, bigger influence on my life with martial arts and people that I wanted to become, right? They were my idols. That I loved martial arts. I loved what they represented, on on just Asian people on TV. There was no other people that we looked up to, so that was a big one.
Before I came to Korea, I googled I'm Korean, but I can't really speak Korean. What does this mean? And it said that there's actually a term for it, which is called receptive bilingualism, which means people like me, people can understand the language but can't speak it. It is a term, and I didn't know that until this year, which is crazy. I genuinely thought it wasn't not many people was like this.
Mainly the relationship point, a lot of understanding, a lot of explanation, and by knowing, and I definitely felt that by knowing the mother tongue language more and being more fluent in it, I had a better connection and closer connection with my parents and I guess family members as well. Whereas before that, it was rejecting the language, rejecting the culture, because of the naive thought of I don't need Cantonese. Everybody in the UK speaks English anyway, so yeah, let's all just speak English. Terrible, I know.
I just feel like, despite the fact that, you know, I didn't go to Korean school and like when I was younger, and I was only exposed to like the English language in my daytime, and like when I went back home I was exposed to my parents speaking to me in Korean, like it was still a huge influence in my life, and especially in my upbringing, because like even small things like when you can't translate a word in English, so you just say the Korean. That's how you know like my household was a Konglish household, because we just mixed the two together. Because some words also, if you translate it to English, it just don't give the same impact when you say it in Korean. So there's all these sorts of things, and like some words just come naturally more to me in Korean than English. For example, rice. I don't say rice, I say pub. So that's how it was.
It just gives you a sense of belonging, and you know your heritage, that sort of thing. And also it's allowed me to be more sympathetic, well I guess the word is empathetic, towards people whose first language isn't English. Like it just, I don't know, you just feel more a little bit. You're just like, I understand, I get it, it's okay. It's hard knowing one language, imagine knowing two.
I used to go to Chinese school, but I dropped out after like maybe a year or two. I was terrible at it. Was in there when I was a kid. I don't know how old I was going to these classes, maybe like 6 or 7 years old. Really don't know.
This question's quite funny because I went to school in Pakistan for a year, so I had to learn Urdu over there, but it wasn't really formally because I wasn't really taught as a beginner, because I was just like plumped into a class and like, hey, go learn what you gotta learn.
I'm here in Korea, and initially the reasons why I came to this country was because I joined a language language class with a university, and long story short, after a week of the language classes back in June, I quit because it was all online. It was at the peak of the day, like 1:30 to 5:30, and I just felt like I wasn't utilizing my speaking as much as I thought I would be.
So that was forced learning, but formal learning, no. I haven't actually done any of that. I did want to learn, I did want to improve. I did it informally by making a lot of Hong Kong friends and speaking to them every single day, going through the trenches of getting laughed at for pronouncing things wrong, saying things wrong, saying things with a certain dialect.
Informally, it works, but you really need to like discipline yourself to do it. I'm saying this like I'm really not. Like I still need to discipline myself more. And also another thing is confidence and having no shame is two things that I realized that you need to have to really like improve your speaking. I'm saying this again, like I do have that confidence and no shame in speaking. No, I still lack in confidence and when I speak the language, and I need to improve that. So it's definitely easier said than done, but I just realized that that is a huge thing. That is a huge that is a huge part in learning your mother tongue.
And when I came back, I did take Urdu as a GCSE. I did quite good in that, but after that I was just like, you know what, I get by, I understand what's going on, and I can read if I focus like well enough, very difficultly, but it's very hard. Like I just sit there like what is this, but I get there. But maybe one day, who knows, maybe, never say never, might try to learn formally.
And yes, I do want formally learning my mother language, which I find it really, really hard, especially when I want to do a certificate in Mandarin, and I realized that my knowledge of Mandarin is so small, and of course I have to work hard to able to pass the exam, and it's not easy as we thought.
Fun fact, I tried to teach myself how to read and write through an MC Jin song called Loi Pan Yao, where I wrote down every single word and memorized it, so that way it was the basis of my vocabulary. Yeah. But no, never formally did so, because at the time I was at uni and second year, and I didn't really know any of these services were around. Plus I was broke. The pros of knowing a different language is that when you're out in public, you can talk about other people right in front of them, and they would have no idea what the frick you're talking about.
It's the understanding the different language, and of course knowing and understanding about different culture situations, and of course cultural differences among countries to countries.
It's kind of like a secret language, especially like, you know, if you're at a restaurant or you're trying to buy something and someone's like kind of trying to con you, you can talk with whoever it is that you know and kind of negotiate and discuss things, or kind of like, you know, hint at things or whatever to like get yourself in a better situation or something like that.
I think one of the pros for me personally, as I've worked in healthcare and in a customer facing environment, I think it comes in handy knowing a second language, because sometimes you get people or patients who are in a sticky situation, or they're in pain, or they're stressed out and they're unable to communicate the way that they want to. They're unable to say the words that they feel that they need to say. So it's easier for them, and you're able to relieve a little bit of that stress. You're able to help them understand what's going on a little bit better.
But the cons of knowing a different language is when you know too much, you kind of like confused, and the translation is not really on point, because there is a certain language the translation is the other way around, just like Malay you say it the other way around. But of course there is least con of knowing a different language, but there's more pros than the cons.
Maybe sometimes you know, people think that you're super fluent in it and they speak to you like, you know, really fluently, use complications and stuff, and then you have to be like, actually my Cantonese isn't that great, sorry. And it's like, oh, okay. Then there's the whole thing of like, oh, you're not really like a proper Chinese person, whatever, and then they speak to you in English. Yeah.